certification exam and the maintenance exam. So I'm at Trailhead, and at Trailhead, I'm going to search for the 2019 summer items. And so we can see down here the Platform Developer 1 Certification Maintenance Summer. It's right there. And if I look, it's available just right on the site. And then if I go into the first module, we can see that all the information is here. Close this privacy notice. And at the bottom, all the questions are grayed out. And the questions are grayed out because I haven't logged in. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. I'm going to log in with the test account that I created so that you can see that it's available basically to anyone that wants to learn what the newest releases are and what's important for developers, platform developers to know with the new release. This is kind of the highlights, if you will. So going back to that. So if we go over here, completing this unit, you'll be able to manipulate complex internet data in flows without code using Apex-defined data types, make long-running callouts with continuations, configure your component for different device form factors, use Lightning Web Components in Visualforce pages, and use Platform Cache to enhance Scratch orgs. So at the beginning, they have a thing that says, hey, go get your certification, and then you can take this maintenance exam when, the next time you come through. And it also says, no, although anyone can earn this badge, this module is designed for basically people who have that developer certification, which I do. It's one of the many certifications that I have. But let's go with this top one. Manipulate complex internet data in flows without code using Apex-defined data types. So as you read through this, what it used to do is it used to only have two different data types, basically string and what is the other one? It was string. String was the only one I ever used. It was strings and numbers. There we go. But now you can use regular data types and you can define them within Apex. And what that means is you can basically return different data types such that you won't have to do translations, and it will speed up the code a little bit. And it says right here, this solution is particularly useful for connecting flows to rich external data web objects accessed via MuleSoft and REST calls. So MuleSoft is obviously an integration platform to connect to your outside systems. And sometimes you want to have that kind of flow seamlessly and you don't want to do translations within MuleSoft so it doesn't slow it down. So you can define those data types now within Salesforce, and that will speed up the return calls through MuleSoft when it's integrated to outside entities. See, the next thing says make long-running callouts with continuations. So continuations is kind of like a promise in jQuery, but these actually run synchronously. All right, so what that means is, and it's kind of difficult, it's like what would be the use here? A single continuation can contain a maximum of 3 callouts. So you create a continuation, it can have 3 callouts. So on any web page, if you had basically something that was updating real time, like in a mashup, you could have that update 3 times, and it can only do queries. It can't do any DMLs. So, and it says specifically here that it can't perform any DML operations. So I could see this being useful if you were listening for an event to come through. Perhaps you were blocking and then you checked, and then you were blocking and then you checked, and then you were blocking and then you checked, just to see some real-time event was coming through or near real time. So what's important to understand is you can't do DML operations. And this is synchronous. So the three callouts would be within one continuation object, but it would be a synchronous method. In other words, it's just one thing that's checking only 3 times. So it's not continually checking. Sometimes you get to a web page and the page just keeps loading and loading and loading. That's because they have an asynchronous call that is calling out, but it's not getting its response. This is a way to kind of prevent that. I could see the use there. Let's see, next thing. Configure your component for different devices. So everyone is interested in having anything they create available in web, tablet, mobile. That is desktop, tablet, mobile. And in this case, you can now, there is a Lightning, in the Lightning design, you can actually define your form factors, and you can define different sections to display on different form factors. So that's kind of neat. And it doesn't take a lot of if statements and stuff like that that one would have used in the past. So now they have this specific indication right here, design supported form factors. And then in order to have it actually display on any form, you have to have this specific tag right here. Okay, so and then they give us a example right here where you can do these target configs, and then you can have it go on the record page or an app page, and then you can, within each of these, you can have a supported form factor, and that way certain components maybe that aren't rendering correctly, or you haven't designed for yet, you would not render it to those specific components. And then lastly, this is the most exciting, using Lightning Web Components in Visualforce pages. The Lightning Web Components are great. They're much more lightweight than the Aura components. One of the big drawbacks was you weren't able to actually put it into a Lightning or into a Visualforce page. So you basically had to re-render, you had to rewrite everything into just Lightning Web Components, where people had previously put Aura components within Visualforce pages. So it made the lift to transition from the Aura components to Lightning Web Components much more heavy. Now we'll be able to use Lightning Web Components in Visualforce pages. So this is excellent. You basically just add this tag, include Lightning, and then you can do some JavaScript and Lightning create component, and you create your actual component. So that's a great enhancement that they've made for this release. And then last, use platform cache from Scratchworks. So if you're a developer and you want to test your caching within your application on the platform to see how much faster it is with using the platform cache, you can now use that. And then you can also do different partitions within your Scratch org. Okay, so that's important to understand, that it's basically for testing any of your platform cache applications. And of course, platform cache is used for when you don't want to do multiple queries back into Salesforce, you want to hold some consistent static data at the front end. And that way you don't have to keep querying into Salesforce, which can cause some latency on the application. So here it says what flows to manipulate complex data types that are often returned from calls to web services. And this is the Apex defined data types. Okay. What is the benefit of using the continuation class in Apex to make a long-running request to an external web service? And then let's see, it says, let's see, yeah, I think it's this last one. More long-running callouts can be made using continuations. And then which Lightning Web Component configuration file tag set specifies the form factors that the component supports. And this one is this. This is actually how this tag here is actually what form factor you want it to actually display in. This goes on the outside, this bottom one. Okay. And then lastly, which tags adds the Lightning Web Components for Visualforce JavaScript library to a Visualforce page. And it's the include Lightning, Apex include Lightning. And here we go. Yay. All right. And then now the next unit. The next unit is a hand-on unit. You can see because it's 500 points, so that kind of tells you right away. So this is for platform events. So this is another new release feature that they've released with the summer 19. And basically you'll be able to capture platform events. In the past, trying to determine what was an issue with a batch class or something like that, the logs in the back end are not very verbose. Now you'll be able to actually grab it just like you would a debug log. You'll be able to grab all of this using the platform events. So in essence, getting down to it, you have to add this platform events. And then when you do so, you can on your batchable class. And then within any trigger, you can add basically add your trigger in, and then it will capture any of those platform events that's happening as a result of some of your code running through the batch, right? Getting down to it, there is a package you have to install, and that package just basically contains the batch class and the trigger and the object that you have to report it to. I've already done this, so I'm going to go into my I don't want to log into it. I've already done this in my other org, so let me log into my other org and let me show you. So basically what you have to do is where did it go? Really trunk. You have to create this trigger, and it's a very simple trigger that basically you make this list and then you add these things in. And then after you create this trigger, you have to, in the batch class, so I'm going to go to the class. You add in just this little thing. Everything is already installed except for adding this little part in here. This is already done. You don't have to touch any of this. And then the other thing is writing this trigger. And once you write this trigger, and then you click the, where is it? You click the check challenge for 500 points, you'll get 500 points. The important thing to understand is what it's doing. It's grabbing these extra fields that we weren't able to really easily capture before without using this platform event capturing. And that's really important so that we can understand what records failed. Like you can see what records failed on any particular insert. And then you can get a stack trace on what those issues were. The old way of doing it was through the Apex jobs. So let me get over to the Apex jobs. And basically you would get a failure, and in the failure it would just have a little bit of jibber jabber in here, and that was not helpful for troubleshooting. They've made it much more easy now to do troubleshooting on the platform with these platform events. Anyway, thank you all very much. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we will